I believe part of the reasons I am addicted to porn of all sorts is that I am also attracted to people of my gender, even though I have no desire to be in such a relationship. I believe that to be truly free from porn, I need to work through these emotions with the help of a therapist. Another school of thought says sin is sin, and I need not dwell so much on why I sin repeatedly, and instead decide really does not matter why. What is your thoughts on this?
Well, so it sounds like the question is, I mean, there's some complex ideas there, but it sounds like one of the questions is, how do I manage the emotion of not wanting to act on some sexual urges related to use of pornography, and even some same-gender attraction kinds of urges, because for that person it sounds like it doesn't really reconcile with, or may not reconcile with, their value system to engage in those activities. And so one of the things that I would talk about in regard to that is that definitely the therapeutic experience can certainly be a huge help in being able to make sense of that emotion and make sense of those challenges that are faced. It's interesting that many of us will face certain things that feel very difficult to manage, emotions and triggers and things that, whether it's a sexual nature or whether it's anger management, or whether it's an urge to use a substance or whatever. There's a lot of similarities in terms of how the brain is operating. The brain tries to reconcile essentially two different things. It tries to reconcile instinctual urges or triggers that come from the limbic part of the brain, and it tries to reconcile that with the logic and the values-driven part of the brain, kind of the executive part of the brain in the prefrontal cortex. And so there are times when the prefrontal cortex, the logic part of the brain, will tell us, that behavior is not what you want. And you would try to make choices to not engage in that behavior. Meanwhile, it battles with the instinctual urges that may come. And they're built into a different part of the brain, and so you have kind of a tug of war going on between those two parts of the brain, and because the emotions are tied into the limbic part of the brain that also has the instincts processing along with it, they're tied very closely together. So very quickly we learn that if we engage in an instinctual behavior, such as a sexual behavior, the emotions that come with that, whether good or bad, will be tied together very strongly. And so that's why there's such a powerful challenge in trying to manage those things. So certainly, number one, understanding that is a huge help, and number two, being able to just simply process the emotions that come along with that struggle can be very beneficial, and that's why therapy is such a huge help. It can really bring out the emotion itself and really target that. And we develop what we call emotional intelligence, which is understanding what drives our emotions and why we act the way we do based on having those emotions. And simply having that understanding can really help us to have more peace as we understand that it's a human condition. It's part of being a human being to have those emotional things, and while it's difficult to have that tug of war, there is definitely the opportunity to find greater peace within that, and abilities to manage not only the emotions but also the behavior, and kind of find that peace and that reconciliation.